All right. Let's see. It seems like we're getting quite a few people in. I believe we had over 400 people sign up for this unique session. So if you are not on live, I imagine you are watching this via recording in the future. We're so happy to have you here. MBA week so far has been absolutely incredible. So we had over 4,500 signups for this week across all of our events. So definitely a big week for the Leland team, as well as all of this incredible community applying to business school. I'm not sure where each of you are at in your journey, but wherever you are, we're happy that you're on Leland, you're using the platform, and hopefully meeting people this week that you can collaborate with, hopefully meeting coaches you're interested in working with, and meeting fellow applicants that you can chat with throughout the process. So thanks for being here. While we wait, make sure to scan this QR code or use the bit.ly link that Amanda will drop in the chat. We are giving away $200 free in coaching credit. Most of our big sessions, we've been doing this giveaway. So that's why we encourage you to join live. There's always a lot of value in actually being present during the sessions because you can use the chat, you can ask the questions directly to panelists while they're on, instead of kind of just walking through it after the event's already happened. So definitely encourage you to come and stay on throughout while we will be answering questions here and then announcing the giveaway winner at the end. And we'll have a reminder there in a moment. First off, this is an event that we are doing in collaboration with Girlboss. If you follow Girlboss on social media, you know that they are an absolutely incredible platform. I have been following Girlboss for years. Like, I'm out here sharing their posts, their stories on my Instagram story quite frequently. It's funny, it's relatable, it's real, it's helpful, and it really captures a lot of the experience women feel in the workplace and in grad programs, you name it. And so we're so honored to be partnering with them here today. Camilla from their team will be doing a little overview of their platform, their community, and you've also been signed up as part of signing up for this event, their newsletter. So hopefully you'll be able to get more news and, stay tapped into what they're working on. And we're just so honored to have them here today with us. So thanks for being here. Also excited to hear shortly from our panelists, but just as a way of reminder, if you've been on previous sessions, we've gone through this calendar. Today is just the end of day 2, but we have sessions going on all week long through Friday. So if you're not here today, or if you're not able to make sessions that have happened so far, we have tons more throughout the rest of the week. And then we will be sending the recordings at the end of the week to those who have signed up for a free Leland account. Just as a reminder, logistics, we've gone through these in past sessions, but if this is your first one, ask questions in the chat, RSVP to each session you're interested in. You have to individually sign up. So if you just signed up for this one and you're interested in future ones we're hosting this week, the link will be dropped in the chat and you can do that. Make sure to join the giveaways. Again, this is free money. There's no commitment when you put your email address in there and fill it out. It's truly just an opportunity to win and hopefully work with one of these incredible panelists for your MBA applications. And then finally, sign up to access the event recordings. This is probably the number one question we get throughout the week is, where can I find the recording? And we're just communicating, hopefully clearly, that we will be sending them out at the end of the week to those who have a free Leland account, and you can watch them free for a week, and then we'll add them to Leland Plus, which is our paid content subscription. All right. To kick things off, my name is Erica. I'm one of the co-founders of Leland, and I also run Experience here. My role is mainly over community, so I get to do a lot of fun things like run our ambassador program, run all of our in-person events that we host, work with our brand, the experience of our users, our coach team, you name it. I've just had such a positive experience getting to know our users, many of who are on the call today, and look forward to getting to know you in the future if we haven't had a moment to connect thus far. We also see Amelia as well as Amanda and Elise. They are our event coordinators, and they've done an exceptional job putting together this week and the content, working with Girlboss to get this event stood up. So really honored to have them here, and hopefully you get a chance to meet our amazing team members throughout your experience using Leland. Now I'm going to pass it over to Camilla. She's going to talk to you about Girlboss. Go follow them. Like I said, not only are they aesthetically gorgeous, but they have a lot of very relatable content. So take it away, Camilla, and excited to learn more about Girlboss.
Yeah, thank you so much for the great overview. I mean, you pretty much nailed everything, but hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Kamala, the Content Marketing Manager at Girlboss, and I won't take up too much of your time, but I did want to share a little bit about what Girlboss is and who we are. We kind of like to say that we're your cool coworker delivering your career inspiration and intel with like a little bit of pop culture from Monday through Friday. We're a digital media a digital first media brand that builds and supports women through the highs, the lows, the total pivots that come with work and life. So Girl Boss is where you'll find the kind of advice that you actually need, not just the generic advice, but the real talk, like how to navigate a toxic manager, what to do when you're burning out, how to make your resume stand out. And you can find us in a few of the places that Erica mentioned before. We have the Girl Boss Daily newsletter. It'll land in your inbox Monday through Friday. That's where we have a daily curation of like career advice, product recommendations, the things that you would need to know to strike up a good conversation with your colleagues or at the water cooler. We're on socials at Girl Boss. You may have seen a few of our memes going around that the team loves to make. And then we have a website that's kind of where our hub is for all of our long form content, inspiring stories, lifestyle tips, and even some courses and guides. And then we also host a few webinars throughout the year, which you can hear about through our newsletter and socials. And then lastly, we do have a job board that curates listings from some of the coolest and most forward-thinking companies. And we always try and prioritize salary transparent rules because there's nothing worse than going to a job application and not knowing what the range could possibly be. So overall, Girl Boss is your go-to for everything for women in work. And I'd love for you to check us out and subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, I'm excited for you guys and I'd love to see you there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Camilla. And I just looked at their account. They do have 2 million followers now. So really, really the place to be and honored we can partner with them for this event. We've done it in the past and look forward to many more collaborations with them as they really are the cool coworker and hope that they can also be part of your ambitious journeys, whatever that may be, business school, career pursuits, getting promoted, you name it. So thanks again for being here. And hopefully if there are any audience members that were just Girl Boss followers and they've never come to Leland, welcome to our community. And if you're just a Leland user that up until now and you're coming into the Girl Boss world, welcome there as well. Now let's hear from our incredible panelists. We have Alex, Faith, and Melanie. We'll go in this order. They are the stars of our show. We're so honored to hear from each of them today and their unique experiences applying and succeeding in really, really prestigious grad school programs. So, Alex, I'll pass it over to you, and Melanie, once you're done, we'll dive it right into the panel.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Muir. As it says on the screen, I'm currently finishing up my first year at Northwestern Kellogg. Applied to business school a couple years ago, used the Leland platform and absolutely loved it. By way of introduction, my background is actually in neuroscience and psychology. I worked at a healthcare technology firm where I kind of dipped my feet in the business world and then moved out to business school, hoping to stay somewhere in the healthcare world. So super excited to chat with you today. I feel very passionate about making sure that women feel supported in their application process and also in MBA programs. And with that, I will pass it over to Faith.
Hi, great to meet you all. By way of background, so I graduated from HBS in 2020. So it's been a little bit since I've applied, but I've gotten to work with a number of candidates over the past 5 years since graduating. I was in consulting at McKinsey before HBS and decided to return after, but now work in the digital health world at a company called Lantern Care. And we just add kind of really excited to be with you today. I echo Alex. I think well, the MBA journey is unique to everyone. I think there are a number of kind of unique considerations as a woman applying. And so really excited to answer your questions and help kind of think through the process and where might be best for you. And I'll pass it to Melanie.
Hi, ladies. Thanks so much for taking the time to meet with us tonight. My name is Melanie, and I've been a professional coach for the last 10 years. In terms of my own MBA career, I went to Columbia Business School, and I have been involved in the AdCom for about the last 4 or 5 years as a professional interviewer. So I would say that not only am I a professional coach, but I also am, I would say, a CBS expert, definitely an expert when it comes to their interviews and their essays. And I've worked with many folks, over 200 folks, to get into M7 programs over these last few years. Beyond that, essay expert, love helping people write essays and really find that unique story that helps them to really stand apart. So I look forward to meeting all of you. Please feel free to reach out to me after the session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex, Faith, and Melanie, for being here. I'm super excited to hear your advice. I know every time I've attended these panels, I learn so much myself. Makes me want to go to business school. So listen up. These are three of the greatest, and we're so honored to be able to hear their advice and learn from them this evening. They've helped so many people on the Leland platform, and hopefully each of you will have a chance to meet with them and work with them. And if you are interested in getting coached by them, schedule an intro call. The intro call is used to coordinate how you would work together, what coaching would look like for you, kind of your timing, all of that. So use that 15-minute time to like figure out if the coaching dynamic is going to work. And we highly encourage you to do so. Coaching is a part of this process. Having someone to help you tell your story is so crucial to the journey. And these are people that want to help you put your best foot forward. So definitely highly recommend each of them and excited to dive in now. Before we do so, want to hear from the audience members. We have over 100 of you live. So where are you applying? When are you applying? What part of the application are you nervous about? If you want to tell us where you're located, always fun as well. But just want to get this moment to engage with the audience so you don't just feel like we're talking to you throughout the session. I love it. Great city so far. Awesome. Cool. Great to see these coming in. Keep them coming. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of Leland. We are the one-stop shop to help people break into the most competitive career paths in schools in the world. We have helped people across every industry get into prestigious jobs, companies, programs, you name it. Our kind of bread and butter is one-on-one coaching. That's what we're known for. But we also have an incredible lineup of cohort-based courses. Right now, we're doing an MBA boot camp. We run boot camps across like 50 categories at all times. Those are an awesome way to learn, to progress, to get like hands-on support throughout the process. And then we also have our Leland Plus content library, which is an opportunity for you to engage with asynchronous content. So while you might not be ready to actively engage with a coach, or if you're looking for more content to support you in your journey, Leland Plus is a great place to do so. We have sample essays, guides, resources, questionnaires. Yesterday on one of the events we were at, someone asked like, hey, is there like a self-reflection document I can tap into for the MBA process? And we're like, yeah, you can find that on Leland Plus. So all of the resources there are powered by coaches like the three we have on the call today, and definitely a great place to supplement coaching and learning. And especially if you're early on in your journey, a great place to kind of just educate yourself asynchronously before you start working with a coach who can kind of help you on your unique story, but kind of takes away that information worry that you may have going into this process. But the most important thing I want to say tonight is that we want to help you get into your dream programs. If there's anything we can do this week, it's orient you that you are capable of getting in to your dream schools. I'm sure each of the coaches here tonight had large MBA ambitions, and opening up that acceptance letter was probably one of the most exciting moments of their life. And we want each of you to experience that. Our coaches and our team, we are very happy because every day we get to help people like you be successful. So hopefully in the future, we can have your face featured on a slide like this. We do have hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of people we could feature. And really, it is our goal to be your partner in this process and ultimately help you succeed. So that is probably the most important thing you can take away. So with that, let's dive in and bring those MBA dreams into reality this evening. We're going to kick it off with a kind of a starter light question. I'm going to ask all three panelists. Why don't we go in the same order as the introductions, Alex, Faith, and then Melanie can bring us home. And kind of just want to hear about your MBA experience. Like, what do you think you got from it? Why'd you decide to go? Pitch us on the experience and some learnings that would help our audience.
Awesome. Happy to do so. I mean, I'm in the thick of it right now. So the long story short is I've absolutely loved my MBA experience. I think for a lot of reasons, an MBA is a perfect time to explore new things, think about new roles, new careers. But at the same time, it's also a fantastic way to meet new people, meet people from other countries, meet people who have worked in roles that you've never even thought of before. I think that's probably the biggest value that I've gotten out of the MBA is I feel like it's opened up my perspective so much on what's out there, what's possible, and honestly, just the connections you make with people along the way are incredible. So I would say that's probably the biggest value and would be my encouragement as folks think about and evaluate the value of going. Think about kind of all of the connections you can make with your classmates.
Awesome. Maybe just to add on to that, I think the biggest value from the application process for me was taking a step back to think about kind of my career in a more holistic way. As we're seeing in the chat, the application process is quite extensive, and I think it's a really unique opportunity to sit and think about what you've done, what you might want to do, and how 2 years or 1 year of a program can help you accelerate that in all kinds of ways. I would echo Alex and say the network of friends, of professors, of alumni I built during during the MBA process was both incredibly enriching then, but it's continued to be enriching post MBA. The role I just transitioned to, I found because of the HBS network, and so you really are getting a kind of a network of supporters for not just your MBA experience, but the rest of your career. And that was so much more valuable than I ever could have imagined going into it.
Thanks,
Melanie,
Faith.
bring us home.
Yeah, happy to. I would say for me, the biggest value is really having an opportunity to look at so many different potential career paths. I was coming from the fashion industry, so a totally non-traditional, super creative background, was looking at everything from consulting to entrepreneurship. Honestly, really didn't know what I wanted my next path to be. And so I was able to not only recruit for McKinsey, ended up getting the internship for the summer, but I also started working on business ideas. And so it was really cool to be able to have all the resources under one roof to be able to do all those things. And obviously now, I own my own business, I've become a coach. And so I've had quite the changes and a nonlinear path. But I think the MBA really fueled those possibilities for me. And so I'd say to you, a huge thing about whether or not you should go is what are you looking to get out of it? And for me, I was looking to understand what are all the potential career paths.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna hop over to the next one. Faith, I want to send this one over to you. Like, why did you choose business school? I know you talked a lot about your experience and what you got from it, but let's talk about like,
Yeah.
you're a couple years into your career, you're deciding if this is right for you. What kind of went into that decision process? And then now that you're a few years out, how has that experience been from, the trade-offs you've experienced and also the value you've ultimately received?
Yeah. So it's actually funny, Melanie, to your point of thinking about it as kind of what you want to get out of it. I went because I had gone into consulting post undergrad because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I spent 2 years in consulting, absolutely loved it, but still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so saw it as a bit of like a step back and pivot point of trying to dig more into answering that question. Funnily enough, I then went back to consulting afterwards. So I kind of continued to ask the question of what I want to be when I grow up. But I think the 2 years I spent in business school were pivotal both to making the decision to go back to consulting, but also to narrowing the paths of what did post consulting eventually look like. I don't think I would have ended up in the sector of healthcare I'm in now had it not been for my time at HBS and actually having the time to think about my career in a both kind of analytical way of you have all the resources and supports around you to help you think about like these are the different paths and this is what it means. And actually my classmate does that. So I can ask the dumb question of like, what do you actually do at 9 a.m. on a Thursday? But also having kind of the incredible network of alumni who are willing to take your calls and answer questions. And looking back now, like I don't think I would have ended up in the role I'm in or kind of with the certainty of next steps had it not been for that really intentional 2 years of getting to explore in a really safe environment where you have a ton of resources that are just aimed at helping you explore and learn further. So a long journey to kind of getting to the non-consulting endpoint, but very much driven by the reflective 2 years.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that. Melanie, in your position now, is there anything you would add to kind of Faith's experience that might be unique to your own journey and anything that maybe you wish you would have known as you thought through the process early on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I would have done differently is I would have actually taken more time prior to actually entering the first semester to really think about what were all the different options that I wanted to look at while in business school. Because once you actually do the hard work of the application and you get there, they speed up real quickly. You start recruiting right away. Especially with the current job market, I would have really done a lot of more work to figure out what I wanted out of the program before getting there. And then the additional thing I'll add is when it comes to trade-offs I've experienced, I would say post MBA, honestly, I'd say it's financial. I think that for me, especially since I ended up going the entrepreneurial and coach route, I did not get that consulting salary over the last, say, 10 years. So I would say that would be the other big thing, and the trade-off really to consider is what is your financial situation and what are your financial goals?
Yeah, that's awesome, and I think a lot of people have a similar question. They're kind of weighing the pros and cons of that, and so obviously something really important to be reflective about. And there's obviously ways to make it work. Everyone does it, and so to just be very intentional about the decision. Um, Alex, I'm going to pass this one over to you. I know you applied to several schools. Alex is extremely impressive, was accepted to Stanford, Harvard, Kellogg, and probably many more that I'm unaware of. But how did you think about like evaluating the process, where you wanted to go, ultimately deciding to go to Kellogg? I think this would be really helpful for audience members.
Absolutely. Happy to chat with this. Those are actually only the three schools I got into, so you're not missing any. But was an incredibly hard decision. And I think it came down to where I felt like I would succeed the most. Part of it was I was applying with my husband at the very same time, and Kellogg was the only school that we got in together. And so it became a decision of like, do we go separate ways? Do we live long distance? Do I go to school and then he go to school, or do we come to school together? And ultimately for us, coming to school together was ultimately the right choice. And then it was financial. I received a scholarship at Kellogg that I did not receive at the other schools. And so that also led us towards the Kellogg route. So an incredibly hard decision, but I think as you think about not only where to apply, but also where to go to school, I would look at what's important to you. We really had to sit down and say, okay, what are we looking for in this experience? What do we want to get out of business school? And then we ranked each of the schools on those dimensions. The other thing I would really recommend is go visit the schools if you can. Being on campus, meeting people who actually go to that school, we just got a ton of clarity on where we wanted to be for the next 2 years. And so would highly, highly recommend doing that if you can. Again, incredibly hard choices to decide where to apply and where to go. But I have a lot of belief that if you kind of do the work and figure out what you want to get out of it, you're going to land at the right place for you.
Thanks, Alex. One follow-up question, like more tactically on the pre-application standpoint. Obviously, people want to apply to like the M7 programs. Just the like
Mhm.
prestige of the program is obviously what drives a lot of where people decide to apply. But what kind of research did you do initially? Like some people say they, went to the campus or they talked to alumni. What was kind of part of your pre-application journey that like allowed you to be a strong candidate for these top institutions?
Absolutely. So I started with kind of the M7 list and then widened it out a little bit. And I did do a lot of talking with alumni. I think that's an incredibly, for a lack of better words, cheap way to get information about the school rather than flying across the country or even internationally to come visit. So talking to alumni, asking about those things that are important to you, especially wanting to be in a program that really supported women. I tried to seek out folks that were involved in their women's business association, talk to them about resources and their experiences at the school as well. So that very tactically was something that I did. And then of course I kind of looked at their placement and their scores, right? Was my GRE or GMAT within their range? And kind of depends on the order that you're doing these things. Or, I knew that I wanted to go back into startups and more the entrepreneurial route post grad. So I looked at their post grad placement statistics and I picked schools that were particularly strong at placing into those types of roles. So Faith and talked about wanting to go back into consulting. If you want to do that, look for schools that are really strong in consulting. Just kind of align the programs to what you're actually looking for at the end of the day.
I love it. I think that's such a helpful answer. Faith
Erica,
is
yeah,
yeah,
can I
go
add
for
two
it.
things?
Yes.
Just because I recently I've worked with some candidates in the past 2 years that I think have taken a really interesting approach to this. One is if you know you want to go back to a certain geography, there are some schools that might not be on the M7 list, but have amazing alumni networks in certain cities. So, for instance, I worked with a candidate who ended up choosing Gazetta at Emory recently and got a significant scholarship, which to kind of the financial point before, but she knew she wanted to be back in Atlanta. She had family there. It was important. She ended up going to consulting post MBA, but now is actually at a company based in Atlanta, but knew that was kind of the city she wanted to be in. And so took a more regional approach to schools, focusing on places that had a strong alumni network in
Yeah.
Atlanta. And then I think to also to echo Alex's point, like there's definitely the like banking, PE, VC, et cetera. But recently I worked with a candidate who was interested in going the entrepreneurship through acquisition route. And McDonough at Georgetown actually has a super strong and growing program there where there's actually an investor who's now a professor at McDonough. And so I had a recent candidate who chose that over other options because of that opportunity to both study with that person, but then get introduced to that network. So if you have a strong perspective on a post-grad plan, it can kind of give you a different filter that also makes you a unique candidate for the school. So those were two profiles that I just thought were really interesting and how they took what is initial kind of a list that everyone's looking at and then thinking what really makes sense for me and then how do I use this as an advantage to getting in and then also maybe getting financial support.
Yeah, I think that's a super helpful point and also a super helpful plug for coaching, right? Like maybe a client on their own or a customer, each of you on your journey wouldn't kind of be able to identify those goals on your own, but having a coach who can sit with you and say, "Hey, what are your grad goals? Like, how can we research schools that are actually going to benefit you? Like, where would you be a good fit? Where could you thrive?" I know some people say like, "I want to be a big fish in a small pond," or like, "I want these specific resources." And I think there are a lot of schools and programs that people aren't even aware of like these unique professors or ways of teaching or courses or, on campus incubators that would be super beneficial. So talk to coaches, work with coaches, do the research. And I think there's like a lot of introspection and time that kind of goes into that process to make sure you get out of it what you're looking to do. So really, really great advice, Faith and Alex. Thanks for sharing that. Melanie, I'm going to pass this one over to you. I know you kind of branded yourself there at the beginning as a storyteller. You love the narrative part. I've been on several ones of your events where you're actually talking about this element, but talk about how you help clients tell their story. A lot of people that we've seen on calls this week talk about like the self-doubt. They're worried they're not unique. They might feel like they're non-traditional. They might feel like they're overly represented. They have a gap in their resume. They were laid off. Like there are tons of unique situations. And hearing your expertise as to like how you start this process would be really helpful for those on the call.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny where everybody always feels like, oh gosh, my story isn't good enough, or it's not interesting enough, or it's overrepresented. And I would say that first off, if you're more so in the non-traditional bucket, I like to think of that as an opportunity to create strengths for yourself because you are differentiated. So I actually think that's a really powerful opportunity to take something that's different about your background and use that as a way to stand out and say, hey, I do have a different perspective than my classmates. I have some unusual skills that I can bring to the table. So I do think non-traditional can actually really work in your favor if you understand how to turn those things into strengths. And then on the flip side, say you're in finance or consulting. At the end of the day, they actually are going to make up a really large amount of the class. So it's definitely not something that will hurt you. The key is just really understanding what are all of the different facets and angles about who you are, right? You're more than just your career and your undergraduate record. That's why understanding your community engagement, what you do outside of work and school, those are going to be really important parts of branding yourself, of creating a story. Maybe you're really passionate about animals and you work at an animal shelter on the weekend or something of that nature. For me, in my own application, I talked about a book club I used to run where we would read nonfiction books. So really there everybody has that little something. And so truly where we need to start is looking at what are all of your interests? What's important to you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? And in a funny way, it's almost as if we're looking at that Stanford essay prompt of what matters to you most and why, because I really want to get to know who you are at your core. And it allows you to do that really deep self-reflection. So once we do that deep self-reflection about who you are, what makes you tick, it becomes so easy to create a really successful brand and a really successful story. But you've got to do that deep work first.
So-
I'm
Something else.
Go for
Sorry,
it,
I
Alex.
didn't come out
No,
of mute fast enough.
I was gonna call on you because I see you in the chat. So take it away.
Mhm.
And I sorry, it might be kind of noisy in the background. I think non-traditional backgrounds are incredibly like powerful. And even if you come from a traditional background, so for example, at Kellogg, 25% of my classmates can say that they were consultants. However, I only know of one person who can say that they worked for the largest pizza chain in the United States doing XYZ product or project. And I only know one person that can say that they worked with a huge cosmetics brand to do an operations project, right? So even though they come from that traditional bucket, they have unique stories. And I think what I'm trying to say is in your application, one of the biggest things you want to do is show the admissions committee rather than tell them. So rather than just tell them that you were a consultant, you'll want to tell them anecdotes about what you did and the projects you worked on. Those are all going to be very unique to you rather than everyone else. Same with non-traditional backgrounds. You're going to have unique stories. And I think, like Melanie said, kind of documenting all of those in a brain dump and then saying, okay, which are most unique to me, which are most emblematic of who I am as a person and where I want to go is very, very important. So that would be my advice there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's why the self-reflection portion of this process is so important and can't be overlooked because at like face value, I think the immediate thought is, oh, I'm just a consultant. Like, oh, I just, did what everyone else did. But if you're taking time to reflect, your story is so unique. The way you handled things is unique. The way you overcame challenges. Maybe there's something in your family line or in your community or in a volunteer experience that is so unique, so different than the other consultants in your class. And I think there's like so much value in being able to clearly articulate the you that makes you you. Faith, is there anything? I know we're talking a lot about consulting and coming from a consulting background. It sounds like you only had 2 years when you applied. So you definitely had to have a pretty unique standpoint with minimal work
Yeah.
experience.
I would echo everything Alex and Melanie said about trying, like, and I put in the chat, like doing the self-reflection up front, like part of my intro of it being kind of such an intensive experience is really thinking about why is this experience for you? What are you bringing to the classroom? Which is your work experience? Is everything outside of it? It's before it. I actually spent a lot of time in my essays talking about things before McKinsey, even though there were a lot of rich experiences from McKinsey. The other thing I think it is painting the picture going forward. So just because you spent, 2 years at McKinsey, at Bain, BCG, Deloitte, Accenture, et cetera, you probably have a vision of where you think you might want to go. And I've seen a lot of people actually differentiate themselves in terms of how they're thinking about the consulting experience plus MBA leading to the future. But it comes from you sitting and thinking about what have you done? How do those pieces add up? I also would say, I think there's a little bit of this thought of, I have to be like the specialist snowflake in the bunch in order to get in. I think authenticity is actually one of the most important things, particularly when you go from the application to the interview. I've worked with a lot of people who've kind of crafted the most interesting essay in the world, and then kind of trying to think about how do you keep that consistent through recommendations, through an interview, and things like that. And so thinking about what's unique and a different perspective, but also what's authentic to you and what's going to come across throughout your entire application.
Yeah, I think that's an exceptional reminder. Like they want to know you and being able to be super honest and articulate in explaining who you are is crucial to this. So thanks for sharing all three of you. Melanie, I'm going to pass this one over to you. You talked about this one at the beginning. ROI, obviously a big question. Alex, if you want to supplement with anything you kind of did, I know you just talked about your kind of list that you and your partner made. Anything to add there, but Melanie, take it away.
Yeah, the ROI one is tough. And I want to call out here that you're not only paying for tuition, but you're also paying for whatever city you're living in. I went to Columbia, so I was paying to live in New York City, very expensive. And you need to make sure you have money for all the other things that are happening. So there's going to be trips. There's going to be going out with friends for dinners. There's a lot of extra costs, and I really want to make sure that you budget for those things because it is such a big part of the experience and the networking. So I actually, when I went in, was not as prepared for that as I wish I had been. So that was a little bit of a struggle while I was in business school. And then now coming out of school, immediately with McKinsey, great ROI, but then switching to entrepreneurship really was a little bit of, I would say, a trust fall for me. And I'm so grateful that I did it because it was the right path for me, certainly. But I think I would have thought differently, honestly, about the ROI business school if I had known that I was going to end up going down an entrepreneurial route. So the ROI has ended up being for me two key things. One is I was able to explore so many different avenues that I would not have been able to in any other way if I didn't have business school. And two is that I now have such an excellent network for basically all of my entrepreneurial endeavors. So I would say I would have evaluated it differently if I had been sure that I was going down the entrepreneurial route. The last thing I'll say here is I am single and I was also single when I was in business school. So I was paying for everything on my own and still am. So honestly, that's going to affect your decisions, especially as women. Are you partnered? Do you have a child? Are you planning to get married or live with someone? I would really encourage you to talk about the financials and the ROI with anybody who's in your life and to think about those things so that you're making the right decision for yourself and the financial health of your future. So, a couple of things there to think about. Always happy to talk more offline about this as well.
I will jump in and I'll echo Melanie in saying this ROI is hard. When I was deciding whether or not to apply to business school, I relied on my dad quite a bit. He did business school. And so we were talking one day and my type A personality really just wanted a spreadsheet where I plug in my tuition, I plug in my living costs, and then it like spits out what salary I'll have after school. And that just doesn't exist in this world. And my dad kind of said, look, Alex, like you may not have a guaranteed salary bump. You may not have XYZ. However, no one can take away the education that you get in business school. No one can take away the friendships and the connections, like Melanie said, the networking that you have. If that is something that you're interested in and it's to you worth paying for, then you should definitely do it. And that's what ultimately pushed me over the edge to apply is I kind of felt like I did want that. I wanted those experiences. I wanted to be able to meet people. I wanted the education. Again, it's definitely a very personal decision depending on your financial situation. Like Melanie said, if you have someone who can support you, whether it's parents or a partner or anything like that, because the ROI is just not clear. But if you are excited about those experiences, I would definitely encourage you at least to think about applying.
Thanks so much. This has been awesome. I am getting a lot of positive feedback, and I'm so grateful for just how candid each of you are being. I think that's why we do this session is for like real conversation to be sparked. A lot of the people on this call are thinking through very similar things. So thank you to each of the panelists for what you're bringing and into the Girlboss community too. I hope these are like real transparent conversations that you all want to be hearing tonight. As a quick reminder, we are doing a giveaway. This is really, really just for you to have a chance to get free coaching money so that you can work with Faith, Alex, Melanie, and any of the other coaches on our platform based on your budget, your background, your goals. So apply now. This is really quick. I'll be announcing the winner at the end, and we really hope that one lucky person on this call is able to work with one of these incredible panelists. Just as a reminder too, if you wonder what can you do with that $200, the opportunities are endless. We've talked a lot about storytelling, but there are other things like thinking through your school selection process, what your like kind of broader application strategy is going to look like, resumes, which are very different than just your traditional career resume, letters of export, you name it, interviews. Faith talked about like how you present yourself in the interview is so important. That's kind of like the last step in this journey to secure your spot. So whatever that may be, that's where the coaching credit can be used for. And hopefully one of you walk away with the credit, and hopefully many of you start working with the coach just because it is going to be so additive and helpful in your process. Faith, I'm going to pass this over to you. What resources were most helpful to you in the application process? I know too, like just want to acknowledge there is a lot of information overload of what's out there. And then there's also specific like female program resources. If you have any experience with those, you can tap in, or if you met anyone who used any, happy to hear about those as well. I think that would be really helpful for audience members.
Yeah. So it's interesting when I applied, which feels like a long time ago now, I think there were not as many resources outside of, I would say the kind of the other half of the coaching spectrum, which is kind of more of the like, not through the Leland platform, but there are like MBA coaches that exist. What I really relied on, one, Alex's recommendation to talk to alumni or people who just gone through the process, I thought was really helpful from a starting point of what do I need to be thinking about? How do I actually start to differentiate between the schools? From a GMAT perspective, I did take a course, which I thought was really helpful, just to kind of get you back in the, I hadn't studied in a few years. And so getting back in the process of studying and learning math. And then I didn't work with a coach. I wish I had. I didn't at the time know but existed. But having kind of close friends and family read my essays really to test for the authenticity point, and also just help think through kind of are you communicating what you think you're communicating on paper? And then also kind of trying to gut check. As someone asked in the chat around, like, what do I put in my resume versus activities? Like, to gut check that things kind of felt consistent across the story. So I had friends who were going through the process as well, and we kind of served as sounding boards for each other. Now as a coach, like, I wish I'd had the opportunity to work with someone who'd seen the process many times, because you learn a lot going through it. But the pattern recognition of, hey, have you thought about this school, or, this part of your application, like, could you is there something else you could do to add to this to kind of supplement it, would have been incredibly helpful. I didn't, when I went through it, there were only kind of the much more expensive options, and just wasn't in a place to do it at the time.
Did you use, I know like we partner with a lot of the big consulting firms and they have like in-house resources. I know not every institution and people
Yeah.
have those resources, but was there anything that you were provided through McKinsey that was helpful in the journey?
Yeah. So we had, I know we had credits for like the MBA course, or not the MBA course, the GMAT course I had credit, like a credit through McKinsey for that. And then I also, a lot of the alumni I talked to in terms of trying to better understand the schools I was applying to was from kind of the internal network. My guess is for those who are coming from kind of consulting, banking, accounting firms, most of them probably have some sort of definitely test prep resource. And then you have also kind of an internal group of people who both know the schools, but also understand your job. And so I had a lot of help thinking about how do I translate unique parts of my experience to the school I was looking at.
That's awesome. Alex, thanks for sharing that, Faith, and thanks for the plug on coaching. I know being in the coaching position now and times have changed, like it is good for you to see like yeah, how it was on your own and then now working with people, kind of the learnings there. So thank you for the transparency. Alex, anything you'd add having gone through the process fairly recently?
Yeah. It's interesting to hear Faith talk about coaching, because I used a ton of coaching through the Leland platform just because I did apply 2 years ago. So it was pretty recent. I would say just having, whether it's a coach or family or friends or some other person read your application really, really, really helps. I had my coach read my application and then I had some friends read it as well. And especially as women, I think we have a tendency to undersell ourselves a little bit. And so my coach and my friends kind of pointed out a couple points where they were like, no, like you're underselling this, you're underselling this. And so I think they helped me kind of step into my accomplishments a little bit more and tell my narrative in a way that made more sense for the admissions committee. So would highly recommend either kind of a third party or a coach. And then going to the school specifically, whether it's talking to alumni or talking to folks that are in kind of their admissions office or something like that, and asking questions such as, here are my long-term goals, what clubs and things of that nature do you suggest? That was incredibly helpful to kind of see, okay, what can I include in my application to say, here's what I want to utilize at XYZ school. So those would be my two pieces of advice.
I love it. Okay, I'm gonna ask Faith and then Melanie, were there any like resources on campus that you tapped into that were helpful in like kind of deciding the post MBA journey? I think that's probably, we've talked a lot about the value of it, but any resources that like were particularly helpful while you were there and setting you up for post MBA success?
In terms of post MBA success, I found HBS's career office fantastic, both for like near term, but also a resource I've gone back and used as an alum many times. The other thing I would just like foot stomp a million times, I had a HBS Healthcare Club mentor who told me that during his first year of business school, he had reached out to something like 100 HBS alumni, which I was like, wow, that's a lot. But he basically said, like, during your 2 years of business school is the easiest time to get on people's calendar because everyone's excited to talk to students. And so I used that. I don't think I talked to 100 people in my first year, but I asked a lot of people for their time. And it was so valuable just to get their perspective on what they did during their business school experience that was valuable, what they did afterwards, how they stayed connected, how they tapped into the broader network. And so in addition to like school resources, which I think Alex mentioned this, there's like more programming than you could ever want in business school. Like you will not go sad. You won't, your calendar won't be empty, but also using it as a way to build kind of the alumni connections because people love talking to students.
Thanks for sharing. Melanie, anything pre or post or pre or during or post that you want to
Yeah,
speak to on the resources front? I find this question to be really tactical. Like a lot of people are like curious what's out there, what they can gain from it. So anything you want to share from your own journey, super
yeah,
helpful.
totally. I think for me, in terms of while I was at business school and even post, it really was about being completely shameless about reaching out to people with my Columbia email address. Being able to say, I am a current MBA, please help me. I was super shameless about that. And I think that that is so incredibly important. The moment you have that MBA email address, start networking. Reach out to current students, alumni, even if it's someone that didn't go to your school who you just think has a really cool job, reach out to them and use that to your advantage. That during school as well as post school, I would say over the first maybe 2 years or so were really the best resources. Unpopular opinion, I did not think the Career Center was super helpful, to be honest. I really leaned into the current students and alumni. I felt that they were just so much more knowledgeable about the specific questions I had, about specific career questions and how I was going about targeting different roles. And then one other thought in regards to pre-business school resources. So while I was applying, so I had no money. I was coming from the fashion industry. I had no idea what I was doing. And I so wish that I had had a coach because I think it would have completely made the process so much less scary. And so, depending upon whatever your own situation is, even if you don't have a ton of resources to hire a coach for a comprehensive package, I highly recommend trying to at least work with someone for at least a few hours just to really get that knowledge, just to really help clarify and demystify the process. There was so much I didn't know about. And also lean into your community. One thing I did use was I went to Cornell for undergrad, and I did at that point in time have a couple friends who had just gotten into business school the year or two prior. So I reached out to them. And so my undergrad community ended up actually helping me get into my graduate school. So those are just some other ways to think about how to utilize application resources, even if you can't get a traditional coach.
I love it. Thanks for sharing. Super helpful. All right. I think this is our last question. And I think a great place to leave everyone just with some like great tactical, reflective advice. Let's go, Melanie, Faith, and then Alex can bring us home.
All right. So if I could go back and tell myself one thing, wow, that's wild. I guess if I could tell myself one thing going into business school, it really would again have been being super clear about what were the specific avenues I wanted to look at while I was in school. So that I would end up showing up really prepared to look at, say, two or three different career avenues. And I think it just would have made the process so much more streamlined. The other thing I would have told myself before I even got to business school during the application process, which is where most of you are now, I would have just been less shy about owning my story. It really took me, I would say, a good 4 months until my essays really got to a place where I actually really felt like they sounded like me. And frankly, that's why I was successful with getting into these schools, right? And it really took me a while, though, to get there where I think maybe I was just a little nervous to really own who I was. And so just own it, own who you are. The fact that you are different or that you have a certain score or you went to a certain school or you did something or you didn't do something. This is part of your story. And so just owning that is going to allow you to really find what is your unique flavor and have fun with the process. I know that may sound silly, but you can really have fun with this if you allow yourself to just be authentic.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Faith, take it away.
Um, I think from the actual school experience part, I would say being open to exploring, even beyond kind of what I went into school thinking I was interested in doing. There's no other time in your life where literally all of the programming is just to help you learn. And so towards the end of my time, I went to a lot, kind of a broader set of information sessions when companies would come or HBS would put on kind of some sort of like ETA 101. But at the beginning, I think I went in with a pretty clear idea of what I thought I wanted. And so I would say just use all of the opportunities you have to test the boundaries of what you think your career might look like. Your career is a long period of time. It may ebb and flow, and you use those 2 years to at least kind of get a foundation. From the application process, looking back, I dived very quickly into like, how are we going to answer these essay questions? How are we going to package things up? And if I could go back, I would take a step back before doing any of that and just put on paper all of the things I think might go into it. And I could almost like a whiteboard filling it to think about like, what are the pieces of a story? Because it does transcend your essays, your recommendations, your activities, your resume, and you want to put a cohesive story together. And so I'd shift the emphasis from the essay into what's the kind of entire package, and be thoughtful about how that's going to transcend through who you pick for your recommendations and things like that before kind of tooling around with the essay and trying to tweak words or tweak sentences or phrasing. And I would have spent a lot more time up front kind of with the questioning part of why am I doing this, and how, and what's the story I want to kind of communicate through the whole package.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super helpful, the self-reflection piece and just diving like so deep into it. Thanks for sharing. Alex, what's kind of your final tip or learning that you want to leave audience members with tonight?
Yeah, so I think it would distill down into a simple phrase, and that's essentially don't count yourself out. And that's pre-application. Don't count yourself out for applying to these programs. Like Faith said, it's going to take some self-reflection, but you do have a unique story. No matter if your background is traditional, non-traditional, you can absolutely do it. And then during your program as well, don't count yourself out from doing hard things. Melanie talked about making the jump over to entrepreneurship. That's incredibly scary in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it seems like you really enjoyed that journey. And so I would encourage you to kind of count yourself in for so many of the activities of business school, the learnings, things of that nature. The more that you can kind of get yourself involved and not take yourself out preemptively, I think the better of an experience you're going to have.
I love it. And I think that's such a good high note to wrap up on. Last year when we did this panel, I haven't seen any questions come through, but the number one thing people said last year was like this imposter syndrome, and kind of relating it a little bit to like their experience as a woman, right? Being like feeling like they were a little more likely to not apply somewhere because they felt underqualified. And I obviously don't want to put words in people's mouth, but and I know no everyone's experience is so unique, but I do think that's just so important that we as females on this call today are like seeing ourselves in these programs, knowing that we're capable of it. We're capable of being successful. We're capable of getting our dream jobs, our dream schools. So thank you, Alex, for leaving us on such an inspiring note. Thank you to each of you for being here, and hopefully you learned a ton. These coaches are all available to work with. So hopefully outside of just the hour of advice they gave tonight, you're going to work with them one-on-one to kind of open their mind to all of their learnings that they want to share with you. So huge thank you, Faith, Melanie, and Alex. All three of you are incredibly impressive. Also really, really cool to hear like your own unique stories. Just going through the process, both pre, during, and after. So thank you so much. We've dropped their profiles in the chat. Faith has also dropped a coupon. Go work with them, go chat with them. Again, the intro call is there and available for you to kind of discuss like how you would work together, maybe which package would be best. Maybe you want to start out with a few hours, maybe just booking an hour to begin. Wherever you are in the process, these coaches are willing to kind of chat through what that coaching dynamic would look like. And I highly recommend using them to get this goal reached. It's impossible to reach any goal alone. If I've learned anything in my time, it's that we need people who believe in us and support us. And that's really the value of coaching. So as a final note, thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Camila, thank you for bringing Girlboss in as part of this partnership. We love working with your organization. We love your community members, and we hope to continue doing these in the future just because I know there's so much value in learning from people who have been in our shoes before. So thank you again, Girlboss. Thank you to our Leland panelists. And then I'm going to announce our giveaway winner right now. Cynthia Anaba, you are the giveaway winner. We will be messaging you with your $200 credit code. Hopefully you can use it. And if you didn't win today, there are several other opportunities to win throughout the week. So join us for future events. Hop on in. We're happy to see you throughout the ones that you can make. and really looking forward to being on this journey with you. So thank you again, Faith, Alex, Melanie, Camila, and thank you to each of you audience members for making time out of your busy evenings to be here with us today. And best of luck in the MBA journey. Know we're rooting for you and we're cheering you on at every milestone. Thanks again, everyone. Have a lovely evening.